All right, let's get into some word problems. So let's start here. During the 2006 and 2007 NHL season, Christian Huselius of the Calgary Flames had a total of 41 more than one half. So let's highlight the important information. So 41 more than one half the number of shots on goal as Jerome McGinley. Okay? If Huselius had 173 shots on goal, how many did Iginla have? So we are looking for the shots on goal that Iginla had. So I'm going to say, so shots on goal, Iginla. Okay, and we're going to say that that is going to be represented by S. Okay, the number of shots on goal that Iginla had. That's what we're looking for. And so Christian Huselius had a total of 173 shots on goal. So he had 173. Okay, so that's how many he had in total. And he had 41 more than one half the number of shots as Iginla. So he had 41 more plus one half of the shots that Iginla had. So now we can see we've set up ourselves an equation. So we're looking for this S right here. So that's the deal. So the number of shots on goal that Iginla had can be represented by this equation here. So the thing with these word problems is we need to figure out how to create an equation. So that's kind of the main challenge, because now that we see this equation, we can solve it just as we would all the other problems. So let's go ahead and solve this one. So we can see that what's being added here is 41. It's by itself, right? So that's our first thing. So we're going to subtract 41 from this side, and we will subtract 41 from this side. So now in this case, these are going to cancel each other out, right? And we are left with 173 minus 41, which is going to be, let's see, minus 40, 132. So we are left with 132 on this side, and we are left with 1/2 S on this side for the shots on goal of Iginla. So now to isolate the variable, we have to do opposite operations here. Now this is something that I touched on in the last lesson, but this is a rule. When we have 1/2 times anything like this right here, we have 1/2 times S. We can actually rewrite this as S over 2. These are the same thing. Okay, so 1/2 multiplied by S is the same as S divided by 2. So this is very important to know and to remember whenever you see this type of equation. So let's see, 132 equals S over 2. And now we need to do opposite operations. So we're going to multiply by 2 on this side, multiply by 2 on this side. And we are going to cancel these out. And we have 132 times 2 to get 264 shots on goal equals S. So we can see our steps here to get our answer. So 264 is S. And now since this is a word problem, I want to see your answers in a full sentence. So we can say Jerome Iginla had 264 shots on goal. And this would be an acceptable answer. So that's how we do that. If we want to test our answer, check our answer, we would take 264 and we would plug it into our equation that we set up. Plus 1/2 S, or S over 2. Okay, and we would just take our 264 and we'd plug it in and we'd chug, or do the math, plug and chug, to see if we would get our answer. So that is how we would solve this equation. Let's try one more word problem. Okay, here we go. In the following formula, T is the air temperature. So T is the air temperature in degrees Celsius at an altitude of h meters. And little t is the ground temperature in degrees. So here's our formula. Big T equals little t minus h over 150. So now we have a couple questions. So there's our information. So T, let's just highlight some of the important stuff. T is the air temperature, okay, air temp, at an altitude of h meters. So h is the altitude, okay, and T, little t, is the ground temperature, okay. So we can remember that. So we have big T, air temperature, h, altitude. So let's just do a little jot notes. Air temp, h, altitude, and little t is ground temp. Okay, so now let's try to do A. So A, let's see, A. If the ground temperature is 25 degrees Celsius, so ground temperature, that would be little t, okay? What is the outside temperature of an aircraft at an altitude of 7,500 meters? Okay, so what we need to do is we need to plug in our numbers that they gave us here into the formula. So let's write out our formula and then let's plug in the numbers. So we have big T equals little t minus h over 150. Now they gave us 25 as a ground temperature. So we can see ground temperature is little t. So we are going to plug in 25 in for little t and an altitude of 7,500, and altitude is h. So this is going to be 7,500. So now if we were to rewrite our formula, we have big T equals 25 minus 7,500 over 150. And so they're looking for the outside air temperature. So now we've plugged, and now we just chug. We do the math, plug and chug. Okay, so let's do the math on this. So let's see what we got here. So 75 divided by 150 is going to equal 50. So we have now 25 minus 50. So I just plugged this into the calculator. Okay, and then we have 25 minus 50 is going to equal negative 25. Okay, so there we go. So that is how we do A. T equals negative 25 degrees Celsius. So there is how we get our answer. Nice. And now let's try B. So what is the altitude of the same plane if the outside temperature is negative 35 degrees Celsius? So now we're taking the same plane and we are trying to find the altitude h. So let's plug in our numbers again. I am going to just erase this. So if you want to see that A question, just go back to, just rewind the video. Let's try B here. So B, okay, so let's sketch out our formula again. Big T equals little t minus h over 150. Okay, so what is the altitude of the same plane? So we know the ground temperature is still 25. Okay, so let's put 25 in here again. And now they're saying the outside air temperature is negative 35. So this is negative 35, and we are looking for h. So if we rewrite our formula, we will have negative 35 equals 25 minus h over 150, like so. So now let's do our opposite operations to solve. So what's going on here? We have a positive 25, so we're going to subtract 25 here. And we would do the same thing to the other side. So minus 35 minus 25. So minus 25 is going to equal negative 60 equals negative h over 150. So now if we multiply this side by let's multiply it by negative 150. And if we do that, that means we can cancel off this negative as well. So this negative will be canceled. Okay, and same with this. This will all cancel. And now we need to times this side by negative 150. So let's see what we get. And we are going to get an answer of 9,000. I just plugged that into the calculator. So I plugged in negative 150 times negative 60, and we have h isolated over there. So I'm kind of running out of room. I'm just going to sketch this up here. So now we have, I'll rewrite the equation so it's clear to see. Negative 60 times negative 150 equals h. So that's what this equation over on this side is representing because of our opposite operations that we did. And when we do negative 60 times negative 150, we get an answer of 9,000. And that makes sense because our altitude of the first one was 7,500 meters. So this one is higher and the temperature is colder. So that's how that works. So 9,000 meters. There it is. So if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email or check in with me in class. And there you go.